All right, we are live. How are you doing today, Ben, on this beautiful evening for our Take Human Action? I should know this. Are we at episode 17?
Yeah, I don't even count. I'm doing great. I went fishing earlier today. I caught one fish, and it was great. So I'm nice and relaxed. Had my outdoors for the day, and I'm ready to go. How about you?
Yeah, doing all right tonight. Better than my day has been the past several days this week. So doing all right. Ready for the weekend. First weekend in a while that I'm not traveling. So that'll be nice.
Yeah. Stay home, get some sleep.
For sure. So to everyone out there, you might notice that we are missing our normal co-host, Jacob. He will be joining us a little bit later on the stream. But in the meantime, we have a special guest that we'd like to introduce. So, Ben, would you like to do the honors?
Sure thing. So today we have a very special guest, the host of The Naturalist Capitalist, Free Stater up in New Hampshire, and raging anti-Semite, Reed Coverdale.
What's going on? Reed. It's me in the flesh.
Well, what do you have to say for yourself?
Oh, I just put my uniform in the other room so I wouldn't offend anyone. But I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Well, since Ben asked at the beginning, how are you doing on this fine evening?
Oh, I'm doing well. Can't complain.
All right, good to hear it. So, on this show, we start out just talking a little bit about people's backgrounds. So, I know Ben knows you a little bit better, but I've been following your podcast for a little bit and seeing how that evolved, starting from focusing on unity and eventually going to like more the Mises Caucus direction. So why don't you take us a little bit before that even? How did you start out and what led you to start the podcast?
Sure. So I come from a very conservative background. Then after I left high school, I started kind of drifting away from that and then got drawn more toward libertarianism in 2016. With the Rand Paul presidential campaign, which didn't really go anywhere. So I ended up voting Gary Johnson, but then kind of just didn't pay attention to politics after that. I would pay attention, but I wasn't like involved, wasn't really doing anything until 2020 or 2019, I guess. Till 2019, Tulsi Gabbard was running for president. So I met her in New Hampshire and got working on her campaign. And it was right before everything got exciting. It was in September. And so then the Hillary Clinton Queen of Warmongers Russian asset thing popped off like right after that and went insane. So that was really exciting. Got to see how awful the media was to her and everything. And that kind of really red-pilled me on how evil the media is. They're not just, stupid or misinforming us. Like they're actually legitimately evil. And then after she dropped out and endorsed Biden, I got kind of black-pilled on the two-party system and decided, okay, I guess the Libertarian Party is it. Like, even though I wasn't very impressed with them last time, I guess I'll get involved. And I didn't really do a ton on the Jorgensen campaign. I had a sticker on my car and told people on my show to vote for it, but I actually really started interviewing a bunch of down-ballot candidates from Texas and Kentucky, Idaho, people all over the country who are running for state house, state senate, and then for Congress and Senate in Washington, D.C. And I had started the podcast in May of 2020, and I guess what really triggered it was in March of 2020, I didn't have any sort of social media platform. I just had 100 friends on Facebook or something. And I was screaming into the void about the CARES Act because I was just like, this is the worst thing ever that we're about to pass. And it's going to destroy our economy and shift a ton of wealth upwards and screw over the middle class. And I was just posting all these, posts to Facebook, and it would go out to 100 people. I was like, all right, I got to do something. So I started a Twitter account, and it took off pretty quickly. And then with the success of the Twitter account, I decided, you know what, I should start a YouTube channel. So I started the YouTube channel in May and just invited people on to talk about whatever. And then eventually I got Spike Cohen on. And then in early 2021 was when I became friends with Dave Smith. And that really launched me when he came on my podcast. And then I went on his podcast. And this was after the Joe Jorgensen campaign had ended unsuccessfully. And I was really pushing for libertarians to kind of try to get along with each other. And he was talking about the Mises Caucus and, you know, all the people that had stabbed them in the back or whatever. So it was an important meeting because me and Jeremy Todd and the people in my circle were not anti-Dave people or pro-Sarwark people. We were just kind of neutral people who didn't really get what all the fighting was about. And pretty much all of us have ended up joining the Mises Caucus because to me, the Mises Caucus actually is emblematic of what Liberty Unity was trying to encapsulate. Because the whole point of it, if you go way back to 2020 and see what I was talking about, I was saying, like, we shouldn't be fighting over privatizing the sidewalks and, you know, getting rid of seatbelt laws or whatever. Like, that's just so far removed from the most important issues of the day. We should be focusing on ending the wars, ending the Fed, ending the war on drugs, at the time, ending lockdowns and mask mandates and all that shit. But that's what it turned out the Mises Caucus was about anyways. So then I actually joined the Mises Caucus last year and helped facilitate the takeover in my own way. And it's been a good ride. I think I blame my misconception of the Mises Caucus on Jacob Hornberger. And I think he's kind of gone on like an anti-Mises Caucus tirade lately because he, to me,
Oh shit!
I don't have anything against him personally, but he is just very narrow-minded and he lashed out at people that disagreed with him over kind of minor shit. It turns out that's not what the whole Mises Caucus was about. So I don't know if I wasn't supposed to say that. Sorry if I got anyone in trouble. But
no, it's fine. That's actually news to me.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know if we can comment much more on that now without having looked into it, but that's
definitely shocking.
I'll have to look into a little bit more later
Oh,
on.
well. Dude, I have a Jorgensen sticker on the back of my car still, so I need to get that off.
There you go.
But I am curious, like, so as a libertarian leaning person at the time, at least, or maybe you're like fully ideologically there, in 2019, what attracted you to Tulsi Gabbard? Why do you think, you know, a lot of liberty leaning people were attracted to her campaign?
Well, Trump obviously had the Republican nomination again because he was the president, right? And so you couldn't bet on someone like Rand Paul or Thomas Massey or some liberty.
Yeah, but Bill Weld was
Republican.
running against Trump.
Yeah, no, good point. I didn't think of that. But yeah, you can't. There wasn't really like a good Republican option. There's just Trump. So that already created a strange paradigm. And then, you know, Trump was bad, but not for the reasons most of the Democrats were criticizing him for. Like, he was bad on Syria. He was bad on Yemen and Saudi Arabia. He was bad with Russia, like in the opposite way that the Democrats were saying. You know, he was ripping up treaties and doing weapons deals. And he was also pretty bad on the economy and gun rights and civil liberties and like just about everything. Like, he really wasn't that good on anything. He was okay on rhetoric with some of it, but a lot of it he just like really wasn't good. So there were very few options, and Tulsi was the only one who was hitting him where it hurt. Like, she was criticizing him for the genocide in Yemen from backing the Saudis. She was criticizing him for getting out of the Iran nuclear deal and putting more sanctions on Iran and driving us closer to war, and then eventually airstriking Soleimani. She was criticizing him for not pulling troops out of Afghanistan or Iraq. for staying in Syria longer than he said he was going to, and for obviously plundering their oil instead of like leaving it to them as a sovereign country. And then for coups in Venezuela, other South American countries, like his policy with Cuba. She was very good on all those issues. And then on top of that, she was good on a lot of domestic issues. Like she was very good on surveillance, the fact you need a warrant if, you know, the FBI or the CIA or NSA is going to tap your phone or, you know, come and remove something from your house. She was really good on police reform, getting rid of qualified immunity. She was really good on the war on drugs. She was actually the only Democrat who wanted to legalize all drugs. She wanted to free Julian Assange, pardon Edward Snowden, and then even some other stuff. Like she was pro school choice, which for a Democrat is pretty, you know, out there. You don't see that very often. She wasn't good on guns, but she wasn't quite as nuts as the rest of the Democrats. And she did have a couple tendencies in economics that, I mean, most of it was trash, but a couple things, like she co-sponsored an audit the Fed bill with Thomas Massey. And she did talk about how the debt was out of control. So I don't know, like she was better than Trump, and the Libertarian Party wasn't offering anything at the time. And yeah, so to me, it was like it was kind of an obvious default choice. And I understand why some libertarians didn't go there, because she's definitely not a libertarian. There are definitely a lot of things that were annoying, and not like just the gun control or the economics or that shit, but also, you know, like she supports a war on terrorism. And in the past, she hasn't been good on Ukraine and Iran. She has been lately. She's been impeccable on Ukraine over the last couple of years. But, you know, back in 2014, she voted to fund Ukraine against Russia and stood in support of Ukrainian sovereignty and all this bullshit or whatever. But so she's been kind of a moving target. And you also, like, you don't really know how to pin her down on some issues like COVID. She was really awful on COVID in the beginning. She was actually complaining that Hawaii didn't shut the state down enough. And now she's pivoted to acting like she's always been against all this tyranny. So she's kind of she's a little flaky. And I think I've figured some of that out since I supported her. Like I definitely thought she was a lot more principled than I do now. I still like her, but I don't know. So hopefully that wasn't too rambling of an answer, but that's why I ended up supporting her.
No, not at all. And, you know, when you and I got a chance to see her speak at Young Americans for Liberty in Orlando, I actually think I recall her saying something like pro-gun. She said something in favor of you know, keeping assault weapons, I think, and that got a big applause. So I think she's also evolved on the gun issue as well.
Yeah, she's very good at being vague. And
Yeah.
actually, that was actually a pretty good speech, because she was really specific when it came to foreign policy about all the things Biden has fucked up, and then also with civil liberties, very good. Yeah, but with like guns, she'll do that type of stuff, you know, like say, oh, we need to stand for the Second Amendment, but the Second Amendment isn't absolute, and I think it can have these common sense reforms or whatever. So that type of stuff, never really know like where she actually stands on it. So I don't know.
That's fair.
All right. So let's fast forward a little bit to your recent move to New Hampshire. What brought you out there, and what's your impressions of it so far?
Let's see. I'm from New Hampshire originally. I grew up here, born and raised till I was 20. And then I moved out to Arizona for 4 months and did a bunch of traveling, and then settled in Colorado for 6 months. And then when I was 22, I moved back to New Hampshire, lived there for about 3.5 years. And then in 2020, I moved out to Utah and started truck driving for 2 years. I just wanted to go out west and move big, huge equipment around because it looked like a lot of fun, which it was. And then, you know, obviously with all the stuff that went down over the last 2 years, I decided, you know, I want to move to a place where people share my values. I am not a good bullshit artist. or maybe I am, but I don't like doing it. I just feel dirty. Like I don't like lying to people and uh, trying to make them feel good about themselves when I don't really believe in what I'm saying.
Oops.
So, huh? What's
I
up?
think you're good.
Okay. But I want to live in a place where people actually care about liberty and care about the things I do, instead of like trying to ride some right-wing populist wave or left-wing populist wave in order to get a few of the things I want. One of the things that really drove home to me was in Utah, we were passing legislation to ban pornography from mobile devices, and in New Hampshire, they were voting on secession. And I was just like, okay, we're not even on the same wavelength here. Like, if, I mean, say what you want about porn or whatever, but if that's your number one concern, banning people from being able to use it, instead of New Hampshire, which is actually like, hey, maybe it's time to leave the country. I want to be a place where that type of thing is actually being voted on and actually talked about. Ivermectin over the table was passed by the House and Senate, and for some reason Sununu vetoed it. But like stuff like shit like that is passing in New Hampshire. Like, we've nullified all gun laws. We actually haven't legalized marijuana because at this point you don't get in much trouble if you're caught with it. It's decriminalized. They just take it from you or whatever. And so it's not like you get thrown in jail for it or whatever. And the Democrats keep trying to legalize it, but they bring forward bills with a bunch of taxes and regulations and shit. So the free staters are actually holding up the legalization and saying, look, if you want to legalize weed, we'll do it, but we're going to do it without all this bullshit. It's just going to be straight up legal, and people are going to be able to sell it, own it, grow it, smoke it, whatever they want to do. Because we're just on a different level here than the rest of the country. So that's why I decided to move back. Utah was fine. They weren't ruining my lifestyle or anything, but I just wanted to be proactively libertarian because I talk about all this stuff, so I might as well lead by example. And, my family lives here and everything. I'm from here. I know the state really well, so it just all sort of made sense.
If you had to, say what your favorite thing legislatively to come out of New Hampshire has been since the Free Staters started having a lot more influence, and you just listed off a few really cool examples that make me really want to move to New Hampshire. But what's like the most base piece of legislation that maybe Sununu has signed off on?
Probably the gun one that I could think of at least recently. Apparently the legislation was more based originally. It was actually that local law enforcement should be compelled to remove federal agents who are trying to enforce gun control. I think that was the original legislation, but now it's been watered down to they're not compelled to assist federal agents in gun control. So basically, regardless of what Washington, D.C. passes, New Hampshire law enforcement is not required to help. So it in essence nullifies it. I guess the ATF could come into New Hampshire and go kick someone's door in and take their short-barreled rifle or something. But
yeah, but they're not going to do that for the same reason the DEA doesn't go to Colorado or states that have legalized marijuana.
Exactly. So it's in essence nullifying the whole thing. So that's probably the coolest one recently. But I mean, there's already a lot of liberty here. Like, there's no income tax, there's no sales tax. We're actually the only state in the union you don't have to wear a seatbelt, which is kind of a dumb law, but it's just funny. Like, we're one of the ones. I think we're the only one. You don't have to.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, no, just New Hampshire. See, growing up, I always figured it was just 18. Once you're 18, you can not wear a seatbelt anywhere, but apparently that's only New Hampshire, because I've been to all 50 states and every single other one you got to wear a seatbelt. And yeah, I don't know. There's a culture that's set up well for moving toward anarchy, because there's a high trust society. There's an honor system that we value. Like, there's lots of farm stands where you can buy stuff with cash, just drop it in a box, take your produce with you, whatever. Lots of stuff like that, which is really cool. You wouldn't see that in Manhattan or Portland, Oregon, or something. So as we remove the government, the community steps up and takes over, which is really what you need. And New Hampshire's kind of got that figured out. So it's pretty cool.
Awesome. So to everyone watching, drop your questions in the chat, and we'll get to them at the end. So now that you're in New Hampshire, from what I've been hearing, you're working on the Jeremy Coffin campaign, and you had at least something to do with some of the recent ads that came out. And I'll just say that for both of the ones that came out most recently, I watched them both multiple times, and I could not stop laughing no matter how many times I watched them. So why don't you talk about how those were made and your role in them?
Yeah, so the idea was originally just to do the abortion is good ad. And I showed up on the scene and said, whoa, you could easily do this from the conservative side, too, because the abortion is good one is basically just showing that the Democrats don't actually give a shit about bodily autonomy or personal choice. And then I was like, yeah, it's super easy to make an ad about how Republicans don't really care about bodily autonomy or life either. And so then we were going to originally make one ad where it's showing both inconsistencies, and then we just decided to do two, and we weren't sure how we were going to release them, if it was all going to be smashed together, if we were going to do one and then release the other one a day afterward or what. But we ended up making both of them, releasing them both at the same time. And I helped more with the abortion is bad one because while the abortion is good ad was being made, I was actually going out looking for props for the abortion is bad one. So I went to an Army surplus store, got a Blue Lives or thin blue line flag, whatever else, and I actually wanted to get an Israeli flag, and I went and asked the store clerk, "Do you have any Israeli flags?" And he said, "Oh, we did, but a few months ago we switched them all out for Ukrainian flags." And I was just like, wow, that's such an amazing moment. But then we got all the stuff for the abortion is bad one, and we just kind of threw lines at Jeremy, and he just kind of spitballed and made him up as he went along, and got a whole bunch of different clips and put them together. And there were some way more controversial takes that may or may have not involved priests that didn't make it into the final edit. So it was a lot of fun.
Now I can't even imagine.
Before we go any further, maybe I forgot to bring this up towards the beginning, but do you maybe want to address your username or the USS Liberty Junior? What happened on that day? What's going on there?
Oh, yeah. Well, this was during the 6-day war. The USS Liberty is an American ship, and the Israelis attacked it and then sank it. And I forget how many people they killed. They injured 174, I think, and killed. I forget what the numbers are. I should look it up. But they killed a bunch of American sailors and sank the ship. And then they claimed afterward, oh, we thought it was an Egyptian ship. Our bad. But then there have been radio transmissions that have been uncovered since then where actually the Israelis order to attack the ship, and the people who are firing on the ship say, sir, that's an American ship. And he says, never mind, hit it anyways. So it's an interesting moment in Israeli-U.S. history.
Maybe that's why the shop got rid of their Israeli flags, because they just learned about that.
They just learned about it.
Yeah, everyone's learning about it at the same time.
Yeah. Well, we're allies with a lot of countries that have directly attacked us, and then we hate a lot of countries that have never directly attacked us. Like Iraq hasn't ever directly attacked us, unless it's in the Iraq War while we've been over there. I don't think Iran has ever directly attacked us, but Saudi Arabia, Israel, a lot of these countries that we give aid to, they've attacked us, indirectly and directly multiple times, and we just kind of sweep it under the rug and act like nothing's really happening. So
yeah, that could be an episode in and of itself.
Yeah, maybe we should do that another time. But I wanted to ask you about the live podcast that you did at the Young Americans for Liberty event in Orlando, Florida, not too long ago, a couple weeks ago. I had the privilege of being in the audience for that. Could you tell us maybe a little bit about what that was all about and how you got the opportunity to speak there?
Yeah, no, it was it was good. I went down there and I gave a speech, or not really a speech. It was just a what do you call it? Panel. I did a panel with Clint Russell and what's his name? Mark Claire. Sorry, I don't know why I was spacing on all those words. Did a panel with Clint Russell and Mark Claire about achieving liberty in your lifetime, and we talked about how we had all moved and we'd all made improvements in our own life to try to try to increase our own liberty instead of waiting on the government, because you can be kind of like a democratic socialist and blame everything on the system and say, oh, if I just had Medicare for all, or if the minimum wage were higher, I'd be able to succeed, but the system just keeps squashing me, doesn't let me get anywhere. Where if you're if you're an unsuccessful person now, you probably would be unsuccessful without the Federal Reserve or whatever libertarians complain about, because they make the same excuses like, oh, if the Fed were gone, it'd be fine, or if there were higher interest rates, I could save money, put it in a savings account, and I could, whatever. Like, they make all these excuses, where in reality, you just got to do what you can at the given time, try to create your own small sphere of liberty, and and just work from there instead of waiting on the overall system to get better for you.
Oh, well, good timing, because we just have another person that decided to join finally.
I decided to be like Reed, where he just whenever he shows up whenever the fuck he wants on our Power Hour. So that's what I was going to do here.
Yeah, I had 90-10 odds that you were going to pull some punch at Reed the minute you dropped in.
I mean, that's how it goes.
Oh, of course it does.
Yeah, where are you guys at? Have you gotten to all of the bigotry and all of the different just awful sexist Trump supporting
we were going to let you handle all that.
Christian dominionist rhetoric that Reed puts out there?
Yeah. Well, we were just talking about how Iran and Iraq have only attacked us while we're at war, but Israel and Saudi Arabia attack us while they're allies, which is kind of a strange phenomenon. But yeah, they are smart. You got to give them that. The Israelis are smart. They sell, we give them military technology, and then they sell it to China. That is smart. You can't fault them for that.
Hey man, what can I say? My people, they're nothing if not
Oh,
I know. All right, let me tone it back a little bit. So we're actually. Where actually are we in the? I just saw Ben's title.
We talked about Young Americans for Liberty. I wanted to go back to the Kaufman.
Wait. Are we past Reed's mandatory time to not criticize Yao?
No, actually, we're not past that. Although I know at least Dave Smith isn't going to be honoring that strictly. I don't want to speak for anyone else, but that's what I heard from another appearance that he did.
Sorry for derailing the Jeremy Kaufman portion of the conversation, by the way.
No, that's fine.
No, it's fine.
Jeremy Kaufman
Yao is the greatest organization on planet Earth, and I would never say anything bad about them.
You totally said that with a straight and believable face.
I did.
The problem is
the
problem is Reed saying something serious and Reed saying something sarcastic is non-distinguishable.
No, I'll be honest. They did make us sign this weird non-disparagement clause thing. Everyone's heard about that. Dave and Michael Malice talked about it. I was originally not going to go because I don't like that type of thing. And I even told them, I was like, I don't have anything bad to say about you guys. I don't know you. I've never done stuff with you before. And I ended up getting it drastically reduced from what it was originally going to be. And I'll be honest, I don't have anything bad to say about them right now. There's nothing I'm really itching, holding in that I can't wait till I can finally disparage them, because we're just on that was the first thing I've ever done for them. I'm friends with Reed, who, he had a bunch of shit go down with Yao, but I don't know any of these people who all this fighting is going on with. So I don't like have much shit to say about them. But if I did, like if they had actually really crossed me, I wouldn't have done this. I had moral qualms about doing it anyway, just because I don't like,
It's
entering
just
a
a little
contract where you're
weird.
not allowed to say something. It's kind of weird, but
It's kind of
I'm
like
not holding anything in because like I said, we're not really like, we're not in, I mean, we're both about liberty, but I don't like cross over with them much. So I don't know.
I mean,
if
like,
that
you
makes
know, like
sense.
if you're going to get married, right? Like you could say, okay, I expect you to not like, attack me physically or cheat on me. But you couldn't say like, I expect you to never be critical of me ever.
Right.
I don't know. It's just kind of a weird thing to be like, hey, we're going to be, we want you to come here and talk and we're all cool. But like, you can't say anything bad about us. Like, well, like,
Yeah.
am I not
It's
allowed to
like-
offer any criticism as if like you're just some perfect utopian being? Like, I mean, I only believe in one fantastical utopian being who can do nothing
Well,
wrong.
I was going to say, it's like,
I don't have room for a second one.
It's like telling someone, I demand all your loyalty and all your love, or I'm going to burn you for eternity. Kind of. No, I'm just kidding.
Yep.
Sorry, I had to throw that.
Damn.
It's
Well,
okay.
it didn't make sense to me because
We're throwing
the
more
peop-
bombs here than the U.S. foreign military does.
I just want to say one thing on the Yao thing real quick. What didn't make sense to me about that was that like the people you should want criticizing you are the people that you're going to have speaking at your event, the people that agree with your values the most,
You're right.
Yeah,
So
no, see, if they
that's-
had invited like some neocon to come and like made them sign that contract, then I'd be like, okay, that's based. You know what I mean? Like bring
Yeah.
Bill Crystal to Yale under false pretenses, and then make it be like you can't say anything negative about them for a year. Like that'd be funny.
That would be pretty funny. Yeah, but just so we're clear, we can criticize y'all as much as we want, as long as we have a y'all state chair on the podcast.
I don't work for them anymore. I'm free.
Okay. Former state chair.
Wait,
as of
you didn't have to sign a non-disparagement clause to work for them,
No, I didn't sign any.
but I had you to come talk for them.
Makes
Yeah.
total sense. I mean, it's just like the non-disparagement clause you signed by being a U.S. citizen about Israel.
Feels that way sometimes.
It's right
True.
there with the birth. I mean, I've had 4 kids, and when you're signing the paperwork, it's there in the fine print. I saw it this time. I was like, God damn, it's right
Yeah.
there.
And they've added
Google
Ukraine since
dancing
then.
Israelis to find out more. So.
Oh man.
Explain the dancing Israelis thing real quick.
Sure. So, Urban Moving Systems is this company with moving vans that was spotted at Ground Zero on the morning of 9/11, and then they drove across the river into New Jersey, where they had a good vantage point of the planes hitting the towers. And I forget the name of the woman, but she was in her apartment and she saw the plane hit the North Tower, so the first one. And all these guys around this moving van were like slapping, giving each other high fives and flicking lighters into the air and dancing around, like rejoicing. And then they did the same thing when the second plane hit the tower. And so then she ended up calling the authorities, telling them about it. These guys end up getting pulled over, and there's traces of explosives in their van. And when they get pulled over, the first thing they tell the cops is, "We're not your enemies, the Palestinians are." And then they end up getting investigated a little bit, but then it kind of gets swept under the rug. Nothing ever happens about it. And then the owner of Urban Moving Systems, Dominic Suter, he escapes back to Israel after 9/11. It's unclear whether or not he was allowed to, or if he did it before he was being investigated. And then you find out that these moving companies were kind of like shadowing the hijackers too, and that they were at sometimes moving the hijackers' stuff for them and shit. So it's like, there's definitely something shady going on with Urban Moving Systems, and that's where the dancing Israelis things come from. They see the towers get hit and they're dancing around rejoicing. So Google dancing Israelis to find out more.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I wonder what kind of dance moves they were like busting down. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, she
Well,
should-
here's the other weird part. I talked to Adam Fitzgerald about this on my show. So I think it was also Urban Moving Systems. I think it was the same company in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. So where the where Flight 93 crashed into the ground, they find Ziad Al-Jarrah's passport half burned on the ground. However, you never hear Ziad Al-Jarrah's voice on the black box, which they did find after the crash. None of the other hijackers ever shout his name out, even though he's the one allegedly flying the airplane. And all 6 of the phone calls from the passengers report 3 men with dark skin, not 4 men, 1 with light skin. Ziad Jarrah he's a white guy, like a white Middle Eastern guy. So this Urban Moving Systems van was found, I forget, it was near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, moving stuff from somewhere in the Midwest to somewhere on the East Coast, and they had nothing in the back of the van. And then you find like this evidence on the ground near the crash site that proves that Ziad Al-Jarrah was there. So that's another kind of weird link. Like, what is this guy doing with the same moving company all the way out by where the airplane crashes, and then there's suddenly evidence they find on the ground that proves that Ziad Al-Jarrah was on the plane. Very weird stuff. So I'm not purporting to know what happened, but definitely, we should be asking questions.
Shout out Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
Listen, the most libertarian governor in the country says that Israel is good and based. So, I mean, if you're not down with Lord DeSantis, are you even a real libertarian? I mean,
that's true.
Okay. Now, well, now we're starting to touch on the last subject I want to get into. So,
I'm sorry, we can save that for later.
Israel? Oh no, I'm just kidding. We've been on that for a while.
We'll circle back around to that, Jacob.
Israel is just an ongoing punchline. I mean, that just fits in everywhere. So
anywhere I go, that's always part of the discussion.
Yeah, as long as we have the dancing enthusiast on the podcast, then
that's right.
It'll be that way.
You got to show off the sweatshirt, Ben. You're repping the brand.
Yeah. Go to ancreport.com and buy the hoodie.
Did we talk about how gay New Hampshire is yet, or are we taping that?
No, we did talk about New Hampshire already.
Okay.
New Hampshire,
one thing I did want to ask, so bringing it back to what the theme of this podcast, I'd say, which is to talk about things going on in Pennsylvania. Now, speaking for myself, I'm doing right now the majority of the posting for the PA Mises Caucus Twitter, and I haven't checked for sure, but I believe that in addition to having numerous state accounts for the various counties in Pennsylvania, and then the state account itself, and then there's even a handful of Mises Caucus accounts for the counties, we probably have close to the most social media pages associated with the LP and the caucus combined for any other state. So for those of us out there that are running those accounts, like, what can you tell us about like what you've been able to do in your work with the Coffin campaign as far as the social media goes?
Yeah, I'm one of the guys who runs LP New Hampshire now. And what I love about it is it's me and 2 other people. I won't say who they are, but people can't tell which one of us makes a post because we're all so hard in the paint.
Based.
Someone will make a super based anti-Israel post, and it's not always me. It'll be like, whoa, Reed, did you make this one? Nope. And the funny thing is the 3 of us don't even know which one of us made the post. Sometimes I'll send it to one of the guys. I'll be like, hey, did you do this? Nope. Must have been the other guy. Oh, wow. So it's pretty fun, but we just go like, we use metaphors a lot. You can't say lots of things explicitly. You have to be implicit, and you have to come up with some sort of story you're trying to tell, or some sort of image you're trying to portray, and go that way instead of explicitly directly saying what you want, because you'll get banned. So what I usually do is, even if it's over 240 characters or whatever, I'll write as condensed as I can the idea of a tweet I'm trying to come up with. And it's usually funny and packed full of information. Those are the best kind of tweets, the ones that people laugh at, and it's got lots of exposition in it. So you're teaching people something, because I don't believe in like just being edgy to be edgy. I don't understand what that does. If you're going to be edgy, you want to get a point across. So I do tons of USS Liberty tweets. I haven't done a ton from LPNH, but when I had my own account, I did. So I'd be like, the United States and Israel are going to sign a pact to protect liberty in the Middle East, and they decided to ship, 1,967 aid packages to Egypt or something. So then I'd be like, Google U.S. Liberty Israel, Egypt, 1967 to find out more, something like that. So it's funny, and you look it up, and it'll teach you something or whatever. But I usually go over 240 characters if I have to, figure out what I want in there, and then try to, okay, I don't need this word, I don't need this word, I can condense both of these into this one thing, get rid of this punctuation, and then like cram it down into 240 characters. So instead of like just trying to craft a tweet that's 240 or less, like make your whole tweet, and if it's 300 characters, then see like what you can cut out and still get the point across. That's how I've been successful. And I built a 20,000 follower account in under a year that got banned. And I'm actually thinking about going to California and repealing that in person, appealing it in person, and trying to talk to somebody and get that back, because that's really screwing me over at this point. I kind of want that thing back.
Yeah, you've built. I think you've gone over 3,000 to 5,000 followers like 3 or 4 times now with all your other accounts.
Yeah.
People need the read.
They got you quick this time though. I think you only made it to like 12. No, you got to 6. Was it 16 something?
What was it, Ben? Did I send you the?
I forget it was a funny number.
It was 1,967.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not joking you. It was 1,967 followers.
Yeah, just count the number of seconds. That'll make it seem like it's longer.
Well, no, that was the number of followers I had.
Okay.
It was hilarious because my username was USS Liberty _1967. So, you know, I'm most upset about that. That was, that's what I'm most upset about. That was an awesome freaking username. Because any like neocon globalist shills who wanted to shit on me, if they wanted to tag me, they were forced to type out USS Liberty _1967. You know, so it's kind of beautiful.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting what you were saying about your strategy, because that's kind of when I'm trying to craft tweets. I kind of usually do the same thing. I just type out what I want to say and then figure out how I can condense it into the 240 characters. Or right. I just make like one sentence posts, but that's the only 2 strategies I have. It's either like short and succinct, or I try to just put out something and then cram it in as well. A lot of times it's like literally like, okay, like deleting the extra spaces at the end instead of typing out the word and, changing the word and to the symbol and finding ways to just like cheat it in there. Whenever you can. So it's a similar approach I take. Some people, the New Hampshire Twitter account is something that you either love or hate. There's definitely people out there who don't approve of different things that have come out. Although it always makes me laugh when people like, the total number of tweets that people probably have a problem with is what, like 5? Like maybe 6 out of like, I mean, how many hundreds of tweets have there been over the past 2 years since like the Mises Caucus had more of a controlling presence there? So it's like, if there's only 5 or 6 tweets you have a problem with, and the rest have, been
the
okay.
ones they have a problem with are usually the best ones, though. Saying.
True. I mean, and the ones that are, and some of the ones that people point to make no sense to me to even point out. Like when people get upset about abolish child labor, I'm just like, it's the libertarian abolish child labor laws. Like it's the actual libertarian.
I thought you went commie there for a second.
Yeah, sorry. No, communists are very good with child labor. What are you talking about?
Yeah, point. Exactly it.
Especially if they're Uyghurs.
Oh, that's a whole nother can of worms.
Oh, I'm ready to do Uyghur genocide denial if you guys want to crack that can of worms.
Yeah, if you can do it in 5 minutes or less, because I definitely want to leave some time for the last subject.
Oh, no, it's fine. Just have me back on. I'll deny the Uyghur genocide and get a bunch of people triggered.
Okay.
All right.
Well, one question I had is like, what do you think the right balance is for because like there's so many different.
Oh, sorry, never mind.
It seems a little. No, I'm not going to do it. What's the right balance? And for like what you would do with a state affiliate account versus like a Mises Caucus account versus like a personal account in terms of balancing, like throwing in humor and edginess. And I mean, do you make any kind of distinction, or do you just kind of go at it? Just kind of going with the flow.
When I was in Utah, I did have standards. Like I'd never put stuff on there that was even close to my own account. But New Hampshire is just a whole different level. Like I don't think there's ever been a tweet that I've asked for approval that they've said no. and I've been shocked sometimes. So New Hampshire's account is like all three of those merged together. Like, what should a libertarian account put out? What should a Mises Caucus account? What should a personal account? Like, that's just, that's what the New Hampshire Party does. I would never do like racial slurs or anything like super dumb like that from the account. Nothing that would get it banned, but as close to the line as we can get with harassing neocons and war criminals and pissing off liberals, and we go hard. So I haven't really figured out what the line is yet. Actually, I'm kind of scared to find out if there is one.
Have you tried You're Gay with that account yet? I know that was something you said with your personal account. Just like respond to some politician.
Well, I mean, I won't do stuff. Oh yeah. Well, I think I may have done that one time. Now that you bring that up, recently,
it's a perfect response. It's just so short and to the point.
I mean, in general, I've always kind of viewed it as like a division of labor. Like, Oh
no, that was on my account, wasn't it? Where I said you're gay.
Yeah. But I was gonna ask, like, if you would use the New Hampshire LP account for that same exact response to like a neocon.
I thought I had said it with LPNH, but then I remembered. Oh no, I did just have a Twitter account for like 3 days, and that's where I said that. So, I mean, I do stay out of like the really stupid, petty insults that I'd use on mine. I try to just go for the bangers.
Fair enough.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've always thought there's a division of labor between the different like levels of account, but I also kind of, what I tell people if they get disgruntled with New Hampshire is like, they are like almost like an experiment of sorts. But it kind of fits the Free State Project and like the culture up there, and like I view New Hampshire as like they're the ones that are going just balls to the wall, like leave it all on the line. We're gonna drum up as much attention as we can, being as unapologetically libertarian and in your face and antagonistic to the regime and people who support it as possible, and throwing as much humor and trolling into it as possible. And it's like, and even if you don't think that's the style that you should do it for your individual state, that's fine. I think that New Hampshire doing it still serves an important role in terms of like, if anything, I've always said like, well, New Hampshire can, be up there saying stuff and people might not like it. Then they'll look at the Pennsylvania account and, we're like, only half as based. But to them, it's like, okay, that's tolerable, right? You know what I mean? So New Hampshire sets the bar so high that then for everyone else, it's just kind of like the rising tide lifts all boats. So because you guys are so extreme, we can now be more extreme, but even play conservative compared to what you guys are doing. So I view it as kind of like a useful thing for you guys to be out there just, pushing. I mean, I don't even tearing the envelope. You're not even pushing it. It's just destroyed.
I think that, like I said earlier, there's got to be a point to the harassment and the edginess. Like, I mean, I remember LPNH did make a tweet before I was with them, and it was on Civil Rights Day, and it was just like, this country doesn't owe black people anything. If anything, it's the other way around. And like, I don't really understand what point that got across. I think that was a dumb tweet. So
I think it was one of the few they took down, though, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. They took that one down. So like I
think they agreed, yeah.
That like I don't really understand what point you're conveying. It's just like for shock factor and nothing else. But I think as long as you're driving a point across, like it could be as shocking as you want it to be. And I think New Hampshire has a unique role because we're the libertarian Zionists. We are creating a homeland that God gave us, and we have a right of return. and we're gonna start expelling all the progressives and bulldozing their houses and shit soon.
Murray Rothbard spoke to Jeremy Kaufman on a mountain and gave him the 12
I like this.
Yeah. But no, like we not literally, but in many ways, like we've actually, and Ryan Dawson actually condoned this. We have kind of named ourselves the Libertarian Zionist State. It's the homeland for libertarians to return to, and we're trying to expel non-libertarians through cultural obnoxiousness. You know, like instead of doing a Nakba and expelling them and bulldozing their houses, we're just like being obnoxiously libertarian all the time, to the point that they don't even want to admit they're from New Hampshire anymore. So kind of like if you're a staunch conservative from San Francisco, you're kind of embarrassed to talk about that, right? That you're from San Francisco. Or if you're a staunch progressive and you're from Florida, you're kind of embarrassed about it. I want that for New Hampshire. I want everyone who's not a libertarian in New Hampshire to just feel ashamed that they're from New Hampshire and leave. And it's working. Like we're the only state where there are massive protests against libertarians or liberty Republicans.
And that's where, yeah.
You know?
And honestly, it's like, to me, that shows you're doing something right. Cause it's like, if, and like now Pennsylvania, we've started to get the two parties coming after us for different ways, because we've had a lot of electoral success, and so now they're kind of gunning for us. But it's like you got to do it through multiple fronts, and if you're not making noise and making people angry at you and generating attention, it's like, you know, again, we have to stop running a strategy that would be okay to run if we were like, you know, comfortably at like, you know, 55% and just trying not to screw it up. You know what I mean? Kind of like what Dave Smith says. It's like, no, we're at like 2%. We need to go,
Right.
we need to go hard to try to get to that 5-10%, and then we can build from there. But right now it's just, you know, how, like when I'm out there door knocking, and like so Ben and I were out door knocking together like a few weeks ago, and I'm sure you ran into this too, Ben. Like half the time you knock on the door and you're like, yeah, I'm here trying to collect signatures for the Libertarian Party. People go, what? What's
No, I didn't use that line. Actually, I was just like, I'm trying to get signatures from a buddy. And a lot of people were like, oh, he's your buddy. I'll sign.
Whatever. My point is,
there was that one dude that was like, I'm going with the Forward Party instead.
Oh, yeah, the Forward Party, yeah. I'm going with the Backwards Party.
Not left, not right, but backwards.
Yeah.
Those guys are the best, the Forward Party. I'm so glad they're there. Like,
Make America Puritans again.
Well,
they're great for dividing the neoliberal, like, bullshit, boring gay vote. You know, they're perfect. So,
well, since you brought it up, that's a nice transition into our last subject, because Mr. Ford himself, Andrew Yang, recently praised this lovely individual who just lost her primary in glorious fashion. So here's our question. Do you think Liz Cheney being rejected by Wyoming is a sign of big things to come? After all, she did compare herself to Abraham Lincoln. So you never know.
well, I think the comparison to Lincoln was spot on, personally. Like, she believes in invasion and, you know, aggression and murder, and conscription.
Is she for locking Americans up without fair trial, due process?
I think so.
Okay, awesome.
So yeah,
Completely based.
yeah. And yeah, I hope she likes going to the theater a lot. But anyway, I was I totally lost my train of thought because I was just delivering that joke. But oh yeah, no, I'm not surprised that Andrew Yang is praising her at all. That's like typical for him. He's a neocon in disguise. But I don't think that the rejection of Liz Cheney is a huge step forward for the Republicans. I mean, it's great they got rid of her, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that they've improved as much as we want to think they have. So it is true that the Bush dynasty, the Clinton dynasty, and the Cheney dynasty have like kind of died, which is great. They suck, but we've just kind of got a new flavor of neocons. So we're trading out terror hawks for China hawks. These new like right-wing populist the kind of like populist right conservatives, they're super bad on relations with South American countries, Venezuela, Cuba. They're still huge allies of Israel, Saudi Arabia. They still think Iran needs to be wiped off the face of the earth for the most part. And they're really awful on China, and they really want to get us like
China.
in between Taiwan and China, which is like trying to get in
Hey,
between.
Taiwan's a country.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna be censored.
I think. Well, no, this is what's ironic. Like, I think that
By China, do you mean New Taiwan?
I think the real test for anti-interventionist proponents is, what do you think about Taiwan? Like it's not even like Israel. Like, Ukraine's super easy. If you're based on Ukraine, that's like kind of, that's kind of base level. Israel's like the next step up. If you want to stop giving aid to Israel, like, okay, that's pretty cool. If you think we should have nothing to do with Taiwan-China relationships other than trying to mitigate some sort of peace deal or something, then that's like the high bar for me. Like, if you can say there's no difference between Ukraine and Taiwan, I don't give a shit what country they're part of. I don't give a shit, if they're, allying with China over us or allying with us over China. Like, it's something that we should not be getting in the middle of. And it's been policy for like 50 years that we are not technically an ally of Taiwan's. We have said that we will not support Taiwan independence. We won't get in between China and Taiwan in any way. Until very recently, Joe Biden had a gaffe where he said we would militarily support Taiwan if China invaded them. And then Nancy Pelosi went over to visit them a couple weeks ago. That was the first time since Newt Gingrich. And it was right after we've been doing exercises in the South China Sea with aircraft carriers, and we've named China as the number one enemy of the United States from the State Department. So we've done like all these ridiculous ratcheting up of tensions with China, and then we just like kind of want to throw it in their face. So to me, like, that's the ultimate bar. Like, Thomas Massey fucked this up on Kennedy the other day. He was saying that Nancy Pelosi absolutely should go to Taiwan, and we absolutely do support Taiwan's independence from China. It's like, dude, what are you fucking talking about? Like, just change the name of the country from Taiwan to Ukraine. Like, yeah, we're not going to let Russia boss us around. We are totally going to send Nancy Pelosi to go hang out with Zelensky. Like, everyone would be like, no, that's awful. Why are we doing that? And we did do it, and everyone was like, no, that's fucking horrible. But do it in Taiwan because China's the big boogeyman bad guy now. That's totally okay. So to me, the new Ron Paul moment confronting the neocons is going to be over China. Like, with him, it was amazing to say that Al-Qaeda is doing what they're doing because we've been bombing them for decades, because we've been, occupying their countries. Whoever, whether it's Dave Smith or Scott Horton, whoever ends up standing on a big stage in front of millions of people telling Republicans, you're wrong. The reason China is acting aggressively toward Taiwan is because we're getting militarily involved. There's no incentive for China to invade Taiwan militarily. They're going to take the country politically within the next couple decades. If you care about the people of Taiwan, whatever, you'll let them work this out with China politically and peacefully and everything. If we start getting aircraft carriers and submarines, into the Taiwan Strait and starting a hot war with China, or even a Cold War, proxy war, it's going to be way worse than what's going on in Ukraine even. So sorry about that little rant. Just had to throw that in there. But
no, I think that's right. And I think that some people try to pretend that the neocons are gone from the Republican Party and the conservative movement. Right. But really, it's just that the neocons shifted and got like, I wouldn't say they got like drastically smarter, but I think they at least realized that, okay, people aren't going to support us warmongering for like a war on terror anymore, where there's no clear benefit for them because they can see through the bullshit of like, the lies that were the propaganda that was pushed for over a decade to justify our presence there, and also like nothing to show for it after over a decade there. So now it's okay. Well, now we gotta get smarter, and we have to try to like actually prop up, nations like Russia and China as being legitimate threats, and prop up the military industrial complex and a hawkish foreign policy with real pushing these people as real threats on the global stage, and almost kind of like it kind of feels like we're going back to almost like a Cold War sort of America with sort of Russia and China. And so the neocons, they just realized they had to get smarter and more sophisticated with their warmongering, and that going to war, doing the war on terror for another 20 years wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
The American first movement
except to turn that inward on the American people, but that's it.
Wow.
The left hates Russia, the right hates China, and the neocons in the center, which infiltrate both parties, hate both of them. The fact that they've successfully made the left half of the country hate Russia and the right half hate China, and then everyone in the center hate both is, it's a problem.
Yeah, like when I saw Charlie Kirk go on Michael Malice's show like the other week, it just like confirmed like, yeah, these people have learned absolutely nothing other than just that like they need to, change the target of their, where they're directing those energies towards.
And this isn't a new thing. Like after the Iraq War, Bill Kristol, Robert Kagan, who are both huge proponents of Project for a New American Century, they openly called themselves neoconservatives in the early 2000s. And then after Obama was elected president, that was an unpopular name to go by. So they changed it to liberal interventionalists. And now, like, they're not even Republicans anymore. Robert Kagan and Bill Kristol are independents. And I think Bill Kristol voted for Joe Biden this last time around. But they're still pushing the same policies. Like, they just morph and find a new a new trench that they can get into, and they just try to do the same shit. So they never go away. They just rebrand, find a new group of people they can really influence, and keep going. So, and then Robert Kagan and Bill Kristol, they left the Republicans, but then Mike Pompeo, John Bolton, Jeff Sessions, all these guys, they stayed in the Republican Party, even got into the Trump administration. So there's it's not like they all left the Republican Party or they're all in the Republican Party. They're in both parties. They know all sorts of different cultural wars to fight on each side of and get entrenched in every corner of our society, and just encourage all the people they can to go toward interventionism. He did.
Dude, how sad is it that the Scott Horton John Bolton debate never happened? Because that was supposed to happen a couple years ago at the Young Americans for Liberty events. Yeah, Young Americans for Liberty had Scott Horton, and they were in touch with John Bolton's people, and they declined. And I think they said, like, word for word, John Bolton will not debate Scott Horton.
Well, then John Bolton has instantly gained like 10 respect points from me, because he was at least smart enough to know not to walk into a debate ring with Scott Horton, whereas Bill Kristol, like, vegetative state of an IQ.
Yeah, Joe dropping bombs.
Who's Justin Raimondo? Am I missing something? Raimondo?
Antiwar.com. He's dead now, but he's like I think he's more of a paleo con than a libertarian, but he was like super hardcore anti-war. He started antiwar.com with Scott Horton, I think, back in the day.
Wow, I feel bad for not knowing who that was. Damn.
Yeah.
Right, so
damn Gen Z. No.
I'm still learning.
So as we're wrapping up here, if we could just touch on real quick the outlook for the presidency 2024. You think we're going to see Trump, DeSantis, Tulsi? Who's going to make an appearance?
Trump versus DeSantis is happening, babies. I'm so happy. I was a little bit afraid they were going to actually nail Trump with something here, but I'm thinking that's not going to happen. I think it was another false flag. We'll find out. Who knows? But I'm feeling more like he's going to get away with whatever this thing was that he got raided over. And you're
There's
seeing
no way out of that. Like, it's like we waited a year and a half to remove
Yeah.
things that are absolutely national security
No.
threats. Like, come on.
Right.
Like,
I don't think they're going to nail him with anything. So that's great because you're seeing like Cernovich, Alex Jones, what's his name? A bunch of like big Republican names coming out saying we need DeSantis in 2024. And then you've got big names like Jack Posobiec saying we need Trump again in 2024. And I'm so happy because I don't even give a fuck who wins the presidency. I just want a hardcore Republican primary where DeSantis and Trump just rip each other to shreds because it is going to be so goddamn entertaining.
Yeah,
like
that's all good
that
for
is an immovable object hitting, or that's an unstoppable force hitting an immovable object, and it's just going to be incredible because Trump like steamrolled everybody in 2016. He's not going to be able to do that to DeSantis, and then DeSantis can stand up to everybody. I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it to Trump. So I am ready. I want to see it happen. I want to see blood and tears, and I don't yet like that's super exciting. I don't know who the Democrats are going to run. They're going to have to figure something out. I'm thinking like
the deep fake of Joe Biden.
Yeah. I'm thinking like Michelle Obama might be a good choice. I don't know, but neither of the two bozos they have there right now. That's not gonna
You think
work.
the Democrats are going to try to run another white woman?
They'll go back to Hillary Clinton probably.
Dude,
no.
that would be. I would love that. Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump over again.
I was calling Michelle Obama a white woman. The joke didn't
I think
land.
she's a black man, but
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
she'd have a chance.
Oh,
I want to
man.
see Liz Cheney run on the Forward Party. Just to,
Oh, God.
dude, that could fuck
that
things
might
up
happen.
because you
I don't
might
know.
get some like big donors behind her. So if we could have Hillary Clinton, this is dream scenario. So Trump and DeSantis run against each other and just eviscerate each other, just tear each other to shreds. And you come out with a super divided Republican Party with one of them barely leading, preferably Trump, just because it'd be hilarious if he runs again. And then you have Hillary on the Democrat side, but then you have Liz Cheney getting a ton of establishment support in a third party. And then you have Dave Smith. So on the debate stage, you have Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, Liz Cheney, and Dave Smith.
You're forgetting
that's what
someone.
I want.
I'm still holding out for Kanye West, and I legitimately think if he announces his campaign like a lot earlier than he did the last election, I actually think Kanye West does have a chance to do okay and maybe even get on the debate stage.
Dude, the more
I actually
the
think he should
merrier.
run as a Democrat.
I think if he does independent. So, and then Green Party, we can have Jesse Ventura just to make it really interesting. So they all poll high enough to get on the debate stage. All six of them. I mean, I'll die a happy man. I don't care what else I see in my life. Like
That would be
I mean,
awesome.
ratings would go through the roof. I don't know why they just wouldn't make
And
that.
I have to give a quick shout out to the guy whose shirt I intentionally wore to see him on the VP debate stage. Now that
I love Spike Cohen. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, he'd probably be on the presidential debate stage, at least in the libertarian contest. But maybe he would be VP. That would be interesting to see a Spike Cohen and Maj primary.
Oh my God. Talk about oil and water.
Yeah, they're like polar opposites for sure.
No,
All right, guys.
I
Well, I
think-
got to jump, but
Yeah, no, we got to go too. We're past time. So
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Reed. So we did have one audience question. If you humor us with a 30-second answer, what are your thoughts on if you know about this turn Alaska gold strategy?
I'm assuming it has to do with getting libertarians elected in Alaska, but I have no idea. So it sounds good, and it's a good play on words with the whole gold thing. 'Cause Alaska has a lot of gold. So I think it's great from what I know of it, which is this comet. So
Fair enough. Yeah, I assume it's something similar to the Free State Project. So they did have like one of the highest vote totals with one of their Senate race a couple of years back. It was a guy who was running Republican. I don't remember the exact story, but I think that might have something to do with it. So why don't you drop your plugs for us? Tell us where tell everyone here where we can find you.
Yeah, so I'm Reed Coverdale on social media, the only one. And then the podcast feed is just Naturalist Capitalist, also the only one. So if you Google my name and Naturalist Capitalist, you'll find all my podcasts platforms and all my social media platforms. And I do have a link tree too. So if you just do Reed Coverdale link tree, it'll have every single platform listed, and you can just click a link and find me there.
All
and
right.
Google USS Liberty, June 8th, 1967.
And then Google dancing Israelis.
Yeah, do that before you even look up Reed.
There you go. It'll explain a lot.
All right, thanks, Reed, for coming and giving us the Naturalist Capitalist bump. Just like you said with Dave Smith, we appreciate you bringing the attention to what we're trying to do over here in the Pennsylvania Mises Caucus team. So thanks again for coming on.
Absolutely.
Thanks, man. See ya.
See you
All right.
guys.